This is a common data for two questions, and here three relations R1, R2 and R3 are given. And in the first question, we have to find the relation which satisfies the functional dependency A gives BC. So, if X determines Y is a functional dependency, then each value of X should be associated with exactly one value of Y. So, for the functional dependency A gives BC to be satisfied, each value of A should be associated with exactly one combination of B and C. If we see the first relation R1, and if we see the first row, A1 is associated with B1 and C1. So, whenever A1 comes, the corresponding B and C should be B1 and C1. Then only the functional dependency A gives BC is satisfied. Otherwise, it is not satisfied. So, if we observe this, if we observe the second row, for the A1 is associated with B2 and C2. So, R1 will not satisfy the functional dependency A gives BC. Let us check with the second relation. Here A1 is associated with B2 C1 and A2 is associated with B2 C1. Wherever A2 comes, the corresponding BC value should be B2 and C1. Then only A gives BC is satisfied. Otherwise, this functional dependency is not satisfied. So, and if we observe the third row, A2 is associated with B2 C2. So, second relation also doesn't satisfy the functional dependency A gives BC. Let us check with the third relation R3. Here A1 is associated with B1 and C2, and if we observe the third row, A1 is associated with B2 C1. Hence, third relation also will not satisfy the functional dependency A gives BC. So the correct option is never satisfied by any, which is option D. The second question for the same data is the FD D gives E is satisfied by option A R1 and R2 only, option B R1 and R3 only, option C R2 and R3 only, and option D all the relations. So let us check with R1. If we see the first row, D1 is associated with E1. Wherever D1 value of D is D1, the corresponding value of E should be E1. And if we observe the three rows, D1 is associated with E1. Hence, R1 satisfies the functional dependency D gives E. Let us check with the second relation. If you see the first row, D2 is associated with E1. And if you see the second row, D2 is associated with E2. Hence, R2 will not satisfy the functional dependency D gives E. And if you see the third relation, here D2 is associated with E2. And in the second row is also D2 is associated with E2. Hence, R3 satisfies the functional dependency D gives E. So, R1 and R3 satisfies the functional dependency D gives E, which is option B. Here array representation of max heap is given and we have to find out the array representation after deleting the maximum element from the given heap. If we construct the max heap from the given array representation, we will be getting max heap as this one. After deleting the maximum element 31 from the heap, we have to put the last inserted element, that is 14, at the root, and then we have to perform heapify, and then we have to perform heapify operation. So if we keep last inserted element, that is 14, at the root, we will be getting tree as this one, and if we heapify this tree, we will be getting the final max heap as this one, and array representation for this heap is given as option B. So here correct option is option B. In the second question, linked to the previous question, we have to find the array representation after inserting element 32 in the heap. In the previous question, we got the heap as this one. For this heap, we have to insert element 32 and then we have to find the array representation. So here we will insert 32 as the last element and then we perform heapify, and then we perform heapify operation. So here we have inserted element 32 as the last element. As this is a max heap, we have to interchange 32 and 15. If we interchange 32 and 15, we will be getting tree as this one. And here we have to interchange 32 and 19. Why? Because this is the max heap. So if we interchange 32 and 19, we will be getting tree as this one. And here we have to interchange 32 and 28 in order to get max heap. So this would be the max heap after performing heapify operations when we insert element 32, and array representation for this heap is given as option A. So here option A is the correct option.